we are running a little bit over time. People are still wandering in, but we have some of our speakers already here, and as others come in, we'll keep the momentum going. I did introduce myself earlier, Mike Gilby. I'm with the Victorian Fisheries Authority. I'm a Barkindji man, Barkindji Mullinyapa. So my country is in New South Wales. It takes in Menindee Lakes, the Darling River, down to where it meets with the Murray, converses with the Murray River at Wentworth. So I'm a Barkindji man from Upper Darling, but Victoria, the state of Victoria, is my home today and has been for the past 30 years. And just to acknowledge you, our First Nations, this is the First Nations People's Session. So I want to acknowledge our Torres Strait Islander family, our Yorta Yorta family, and our Cape York family. If they're in the audience, we have a good representation of First Nations at this conference this year. So welcome, countrymen and women, to Melbourne. And I look forward to our first speaker, Matthew McLellan. Matthew's going to be giving a talk on the Wirramarri project, which is a Long Way Home Part 1. So it's exploring the interaction between government agencies and the traditional owners following the Menindee fish kills. A topic very close to home for me because we witnessed this play out. I'm based in Mildura, and we witnessed this play out up at Menindee. And it was quite traumatising for Barkindji people. But government agencies and fishers all come together to work to resolving the problem. So I'd like to welcome Matthew up to give us some insights into the work he's doing. Welcome, Matt.
Hello everyone, and thanks very much for that, Michael. I'd just like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands that we're meeting on here today. But I also want to acknowledge the Wirramarri people, where I'm lucky enough to live and work, and the elders, past, present and emerging in that country, but also the Barkindji people, where much of this work took place. I also want to acknowledge my co-authors, Cheryl Bloor and Barbara Quayle. So unfortunately they can't be here today. They were to be here, but couldn't make it. So I just want to acknowledge that I'm a white fella, and I'm talking on behalf of Barbara and Cheryl as well, but with their permission. So I just wanted everyone to know that. A little bit about Wirramarri. So Wirramarri was a project that we had. We're lucky to have Vic and Sarah here that'll do another talk after me that'll explore it in more detail, the second half of it. But Wirramarri is from the Wiradjuri language for codfish. So this was what this was all about. And you can see that beautiful big Murray cod there in the picture on the left. That was one of the fish that we rescued and brought back from the fish kills at Menindee. Michael gave a good explanation of the Menindee. So it's on the Darling River in far western New South Wales, so the Barker River. It's on Barkindji country. So there was an ongoing drought, basically since the year 2000, with some little bit wetter periods in between, but not many. It had basically led to the lower Darling River at very low levels and ceasing to flow on many, many occasions. So the drought combined with water extraction upstream for irrigation had caused these problems in Menindee. If you see there, that's the Menindee Lakes. So the Menindee Lakes is a natural chain of lakes, but they have been altered to be used as irrigation storage. So water can be put into those lakes and sent downstream. So you can see that puddle in the bottom of the lake there. That lake actually stretches right to the horizon there when it's full. So it's very hard to understand the scale of these things. It's an enormous amount of water when they're full, but very desperate when it was empty. This is the actual bed of the Darling River at that time. So you can see that, yeah, it literally is dry as a bone. And there we have a shell of the native mussel, so a really important part of Aboriginal and Barkinji culture, the mussel there, so desiccated and dried out, a real symptom of that drought. This is something that I want Auntie Barb and Auntie Cheryl to explain, but the river is the lifeblood of Menindee and the people out there, the Barkinji. It's culturally significant. It provides for the people. It provides social and recreational importance. It's economic. It's a food source. It's part of the environment, and it's the real strong part of their connection to country. So when that river is in trouble and dried up, it really hurts those people. Following on from this, we had fish kills. So at the height of this drought period, there were fish that were left in the pools of the Barker River. And in January of 2019, changing climatic conditions, hot weather with a sudden cold change, followed by hot weather again, caused a change in the water quality, and this was the result. Literally hundreds of thousands of fish died. The ones on the right there are bony brim, mainly bony brim, and the ones on the left are the Murray cod. Those big fish, so they're fish that are 20 kilos plus, a metre long. So it was a very visible and stark sign of what was going on in the area. I'm from, as I said earlier, around Narrandera, up in Wirramarri country. So I'm west of the Great Divide, but Menindee's even further west, and a lot of us feel like we're forgotten out there sometimes. We don't make the news too much, but this was something that really captured national and international media attention. That's Uncle Badger Bates there, talking about the fish kill. More stuff in the newspapers. There was and that was one fish kill, but there were a series of them at the time. So it was very visible in the news. It galvanised community support and took the opportunity when there was some media attention focus there for the people, and led to a gathering of the people and galvanising people, bringing them together to protest and make their concerns about the river known, and how important it was to them and their way of life. This was also a call to action, and there's Auntie Cheryl on the left and Auntie Barb on the right. So they got very heavily involved in bringing the people together, using art as a way to communicate what was going on. This was a bus that they painted. So Cindy, Auntie Cheryl and Auntie Barb just went out the road, and there was an old abandoned bus, and painted their message on it. And yeah, really powerful messages you can see there. Our river, our life, humanity. Just being able to get their message out there. And you can see the messages that they're sending, they're very, very strong. This is, in the face of this, New South Wales Fisheries decided that we had to act. So there was a crisis meeting at Narrandera, where I'm based, where we've got, we have the native fish breeding program for New South Wales is based, but we also have a strong contingent of researchers and technicians that are based out of there that do scientific projects right across the state. So we've got a lot of fishery sampling gear, transport equipment for the fish and things like that. We quickly put together an emergency response and got ourselves out to Menindee. We didn't really know what we were doing. We knew that we had to do something, and we didn't know what we were going to confront when we got out there. So this is when we arrived. These are some of the people that were gathered there watching it. We turned up you could see that people were sceptical and had feelings of hurt, loss, anger. And, you know, here we were turning up, really weren't sure how we were going to do it, but we knew we had to try to do something, and we wanted to do the right thing. Where we are here is in the pool below Weir 32, so that's just downstream of Menindee, so one of the main weirs that holds water back. There's another weir at actual Menindee Township, but this holds it back there. So there were a number of fish that had died in that stretch, but there were also fish that were still alive and struggling in that small pool, maybe 30 or 40 metres across and 100 metres long. We could see big Murray cod. There was the tiniest trickle of water coming over the weir, and these big Murray cod swimming up, trying to get that slightly more oxygenated water to keep themselves alive. They were struggling, but they were still strong enough that they could swim away from us when we tried to catch them in a net. We were concerned because they were so weakened. We didn't want to use things like electrofishing because the stress of that, potentially would finish them off, and we didn't know how we were going to do it. In the end, we managed to get a bit of a net across, and we herded the fish into the side of the weir wall where you saw the people were looking down from before. But then how were we to get them from there? And we didn't really know what to do. Eventually, we went into the water, and it was a really crazy experience, very spiritual and emotional for me. I still get emotional thinking about it. In the water with those beautiful big fish, and you wouldn't think you would be able to do it, but I literally went up there and grabbed them with my bare hands. Well, I started with a bare hand, but then after a few cod grazes, anyone that's put their hand in a cod's mouth knows they can tear your skin up pretty bad. But yeah, with a glove. And we literally, physically took hold of those fish in our arms, passed them to people waiting on the side. We had a tub of water with oxygen in it to put them into, and then we got them into the Narrandera Fisheries transport truck, where we had clean, oxygenated water, and we could take them back to Narrandera. So as you can see, there's pictures here from the rescue. This also was covered in the news, so there was some good came of it. We were able, from that day at Menindee, we were able to rescue 20 large Murray cod. So some of those fish were well over 1 metre in length. The biggest one was 1 metre and 8 centimetres and 22 kilos. We also got golden perch, yellow belly, and silver perch that we brought back to Narrandera. And our idea was that we wanted to take them back to Narrandera for safekeeping in the threat of the ongoing drought, but also we could bring them back as a genetic source to help do restocking in the future and use those as breeders to help support our breeding program, and in the event that we were able to do drought recovery work later on. There was also additional rescues that happened following that one, because the drought didn't break after that. It continued through. So we returned before the summer of 2019-20, and we rescued more fish from that lower Barker area. So with those fish, they were mostly transported downstream to where the confluence of the Barker and the Murray is, where there was more permanent water. So we literally shifted thousands of fish there. There were also some more fish returned to different hatcheries. And we also did work not just there, also in the Macquarie River, downstream of Dubbo, the Namoy and the Peel rivers as well. So there was more fish work there. And that's Arnie Barb there, standing by the thing. So the reason Arnie Barb couldn't be here was because she had surgery last week. So if everyone can send their thoughts out to Arnie Barb too.
2 minutes.
Thank you. It was a huge undertaking, and I felt the enormity of the task that we did, and I could feel the concerns of the people in the Barker. They were very happy that we were able to help, but they also felt that sense of loss, that those fish were going off country. And that was a real concern for them. So I tried to do what I thought would be a useful thing. And I had Uncle Mick, so that's Uncle Mick in the centre. He's a Wiradjuri elder based at Narrandera. He came, and Ash Clark on the left, he lives on Wiradjuri country, but he's a Barkinji man. So he came out to Narrandera Fisheries Centre, and him and Uncle Mick helped us put the fish into the ponds. And it was sort of their transfer of that and like a welcome to country. So I just felt that that was something that we could do to try and symbolise the importance of that process of the fish coming over there. Since that, we've been able to breed a lot of fish. We've taken them back to Menindee. We've taken over 250,000 fish back to the Darling River, the Barker, in that area around Menindee. We haven't actually been able to get there this year because of floods, which is ironic. But yeah, we're ongoing. And those fish that we rescued are going to be returned to the Barker. So there, after the next summer, they'll be returned. So that'll be another special moment. Just some of the things that I want to point out that we've learnt from this process and things that we need to think about when we're collecting broodstock from the hatchery or undertaking fish rescues. We need to understand the location and the people that we're working in. Sometimes us in the government agencies are blinded by the fish and the importance of them, but we need to know the cultural and social value of those things. Clearly communicate with the people in the area and maintain engagement. We've been able to keep a great relationship with a lot of people from Menindee, and they've followed those fish through the whole process. And a lot of that is based around non-traditional engagement, which we'll hear more about from Vic and Sarah next. And also to have those people represented in those efforts that we're doing and when the fish are coming back and being returned. Thank you, and just acknowledging a lot of the people that were involved in the whole process there.
Thank you, Matthew. And I was only just speaking to those ladies last week, Arnie Barb, Arnie Cheryl. So I'm sure their thoughts are with you in what you're presenting. I'm very close to my Barkinji family, so very, very familiar with this body of work. Our next guest I'd like to invite is part two of this story. Sarah McEwan. Sarah's going to deliver the part two of this story around bringing together arts, science and ancient knowledge. You know, we're talking deep time. As a model for cooperation and community discussion. Can we welcome Sarah? Thank you.
Hi, everybody. So my name is Sarah McEwan. I'm an artist and the creative producer of the CAD Factory, an artist-led organisation that is collaborating ethically with people and place to create a local, national and international program of experimental work. The CAD Factory is a small team of 3 people, myself, Vic McEwan, who'll be speaking after me, and Kimberly Beattie. I wanted to thank Perry Wandon for welcoming us here to the conference in Naarm, Melbourne. I wanted to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the Kulin Nation and that sovereignty was never ceded. The Clontarf Academy couldn't be here today to do this talk with us, and so I just wanted to take a quick photo from up here to send to the students. Can everybody smile for me? Thank you. The way the CAD Factory became involved in this project is because Vic and I saw Matt the day after he returned from Menindee. As you can imagine, we were overcome with the intensity of his story. It felt visceral, and we were impacted by the significance of what was happening. The cultural care Matt demonstrated in rescuing the fish inspired us to approach the Clontarf Academy at Narrandera High and propose that our three organisations work together to explore what it meant to be connected to Menindee through the fish rescue. Being three local organisations from a small town, there was already an existing trust between us where we knew we could hold each other safely in this exploration. At the CAD Factory, our work often intersects across the three conversations of arts, science, and ancient knowledges. The outcome of this is very much place-specific and related to our location in Narrandera. As artists, we strongly believe that the arts should be embedded across the whole of society. It isn't something bound to the constructs of a gallery or institution. It exists in an infinite number of settings, with everyone having a human right to express themselves through culture making. The CAD Factory is based 30 kilometres from Narrandera, and we are surrounded by industrial-scale agriculture. This industry exists through the ongoing meticulous scientific exploration of people going back as far as the 1880s, with experimentations in breeding crops to suit dry inland farming. In the wider Riverina, the Wiradjuri Nation is undertaking the difficult work of reviving culture and nation building after the genocide and wars that occurred in our region. The Narrandera Fisheries is located a few kilometres between two historic sites of atrocity, Poison Waterhole Creek and Murdering Island. These names act as a reminder to remember how the colonial project used whatever means necessary to establish power and control. Despite this, Wiradjuri people have continued with diplomacy and advocacy, where now Wiradjuri language is taught in education settings from preschools to university. In Narrandera, the second most spoken language after English is Wiradjuri. We see that in bringing together the arts, science, and ancient knowledges, it is a way that we can begin to navigate the very complicated world that we live in. Through negotiating competing perspectives without devouring the other, we can come to enact care. Care for ourselves, care for each other, and care for country. It was through the action of care that each week, over an 8-week period, the Clontarf Academy and the CAD Factory met at the Fisheries to work with Matt in the care of the fingerlings. In November 2020, this resulted in us travelling to Menindee to meet with the Barkindji River Rangers to undertake a cultural release of 200 fingerlings. I wanted to now play a video of Wiradjuri men and Clontarf leaders, John Ingram and Neville Bamblett, talking from Menindee Lakes after the cultural release.
The Clontarf Academy exists to improve the education, discipline, self-esteem and employment prospects for young Indigenous males, and by doing so equips them to participate more meaningfully in society.
Yeah, I think it's good for the boys to be a part of this program, you know, in partnership with the CAD Factory, the Fisheries, you know, and the Barkindji people, you know, like to teach them about the fish skills, you know, how important it is to the environment and you know, a source of food for our people, but, you know, to breed these Murray cod in the weeks leading up and then coming down to release them, it's been very special. You know, it's a learning curve for the boys and ourselves, and about creating that partnership and connection to country and connection to the Barkindji people here. To see Auntie Patsy down there, and, you know, she said she's never seen that in her lifetime of what's happening today, and it was very special for our boys to be a part of that, you know. Going to the spot where the Murray cod were first picked up to then release the fiddlings back to that, you know, that we seen 2 big Murray cod there that were, it's like they were welcoming the new fish to the river system, you know, like you don't really see Murray cod like that surface to a big crowd like we just seen. But then to Auntie Patsy telling the story about, you know, these fish they're gonna cross the river up to a stream, and then and go find their place. But, you know, for us to then enter the water, you know, as you said, that was us shooing them away, you know, to go and help them go and live life, you know. So it's been very special for our boys to connect to something like that and to be a part of it. I suppose it's teaching these young men, these young boys, how to care, like to give back.
It all comes down to feeling, like today with being here on Barkindji country and releasing the fish. And one of our young men sort of done a speech after that. It was very heartfelt, and it made me a bit upset at the time. And it's great to see that these young men are also feeling what we're feeling. So,
you know, because our culture is all about helping people, you know, accepting and bringing people in, you know, us as Wiradjuri people, and to join with the Barkindji people, you know, that's special, you know, to bring these boys down and be a part of that, of being together and sharing, you know, that's what we're all about. That's what Aboriginals, you know, our Wiradjuri mob and the Barkindji people are about, you know, sharing culture.
So we've been at the Fisheries every Thursday afternoon, once a week, with Matt McLellan. He's been breeding fish, and we've just been going for every Thursday afternoon to give them a sort of health check, to see what they're eating, how big they are. It was a different emotion that I think none of us boys have felt before. It was, trying to be, the word for it is, can't explain it. It's, it was definitely different.
My name's Drew Trevor. Part of the Clontarf Academy. I'm in Year 9. Today was a very heartfelt cultural experience, especially for myself at the end, actually letting all the fingerlings go into the river. It was quite a sad but also joyful experience, like putting life back into the river. I know for myself, while we were speaking about it, it was very, very heart-wrenching, it was very sad. But to also have to live through that experience, a once-in-a-lifetime experience, it was very, very uplifting, and it was very enjoyable, especially jumping in the river and helping push the fish onto bigger and better things, and it was very good.
Hi, thanks everybody. My name is Vic McEwan, and I'm just going to wrap up our presentation to focus on how, after this step of the process of releasing these fish back in Menindee, we use processes of art making to try to make sense of this experience and to try to share it with the wider community. As Wes, the young Clontarf boy, mentioned there, all of those boys, as they released with the Barkindji elders those fish back into the river, experienced emotions that they had never felt before. They didn't have words to describe them. They didn't know how to think them through or articulate them. And so our proposal was that through processes of art making, we're able to explore some of this emotional navigation that is complex for us to have because maybe we haven't experienced it before. And so this was really our aim with the next stages, bringing this idea of emotion and culture together with science to help us understand and navigate some of these complexities. It was Matt's emotional response to the elders, the Barkindji elders on the river system, and then him coming back to Narrandera and our response to Matt's emotional response to that really sort of started this project in the first place. And so this idea that within science there is a place for emotion and a place for culture became a really important part of this project. At the very beginning, when we started working with the Clontarf boys at the Fisheries, Matt gave a presentation about that fish rescue. And as today, you know, it's quite an emotional experience for Matt, and he showed that emotion as he was talking. And at the end of the day, Neville, one of the Clontarf leaders, came up to Matt and gave him a hug and said, I just wanted to say thank you for expressing that much emotion in front of these boys, for teaching them that it's okay to have that much emotion, and to teach them that other people care about our river system, our fish, our country, and our connection to it just as much as we do, or just as much as we are trying to navigate. And so we started a process. I'll see, maybe I'll have trouble with this as well. Out on the river system in Narrandera, the decision we all made together was that the Barkindji elders would come down to Narrandera. We would continue working with the Clontarf boys to make a show. We called it a show on the river system. And this was really a cultural sharing. It was a sharing of the whole experience. This was a location where we presented the work. We continued working with those boys about what care means for them, about the experience they had, about the fact that the Narrandera Fisheries allowed the space for the consideration of two different peoples on two different river systems to have input into how we nurture these fish to be re-released back into the river system. So we're placing value on these things. The local Clontarf Academy formed their first ever dance group, and we discovered at this public presentation, where hundreds of people from the Narrandera community came to share in this story, that this was the first time since the Stolen generation that cultural dance had ever happened in Narrandera. It's an astonishing thing to think about, and something that we weren't aware of until the actual event was happening. So these layers of significance that were able to sort of come out of this project allow this important cultural sharing to happen in Narrandera for the first time in a very long time. And so the meaning for the community, was very deep and very widespread. The connection to Barkindji, to Narrandera, and the connection back through time. The dance group continues. They're called Wirramarri now, taking their name from the Murray cod, the name that the Clontarf boys chose for this show and for this project, Wirramarri. And they performed for hundreds of people who came, Indigenous and non-Indigenous, to come and hear this story, to come and hear these connections across culture, across river systems, and about how different people from different perspectives came together to share and to care for each other. The Clontarf boys, unbeknownst to Matt, spoke to us about wanting to make a painting to help Matt heal from the experience that he had out there in that river system. And that's something that during this project they were doing secretly, and they presented Matt with a painting of a Murray cod, which Matt now has, to help him sort of understand that journey that he experienced, and then the care that he kind of enabled in making space for all these aspects of this project to continue, from science to art through ancient knowledges. Elders came and spoke on the river system, Wiradjuri elders. Dance happened, smoking ceremony for the first time at this location, first time since colonisation, I should say, happened at this spot. And these young boys and these young girls and older men and women were able to share in culture and have this experience together. Matt spoke about his experience. During this process, one of the Wiradjuri leaders came and stood by him to give him strength to tell this story, to share this story with the hundreds of people that surrounded Matt at that point in time to hear this story. And then the Wiradjuri elders welcomed Auntie Barb and Auntie Cheryl. They gave them a message stick and they welcomed them to their country. And they both told stories of culture together, and they shared the journey that we had with the Wiradjuri boys caring for these fish to then go and hand them back to the Barkindji elders. And then together we went and released new fish into the Murrumbidgee River system. So fish that the fisheries had been breeding together, the Barkindji aunties and the Wiradjuri elders and the young boys and the wider community together released fish into the river system where we live in Narrandera. And I'll just end on these images. We then presented a show that was projected across the river. This is a picture of a Barkindji elder, Auntie Cheryl, projected across the river with her talking from the trees, talking about culture, talking about connection to culture, talking about the impact that a sick river system has through time, through thousands of years. It's not just about an experience that we're trying to cope with now, that it has impacts through time and through culture. And so I think through this project, what we're able to do is understand that through science, there is space for emotion and culture. Through science, we're able to make space for different cultures of different peoples to come together, and that we're able to share some of these stories, some of these human stories and connections to place through a coming together of the arts, sciences, and ancient knowledges. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Wow, the power of a fish, eh? From a 60-gram fingerling to a 70-pound cod. It brings a community together. So the power of a fish. Thank you. Our next speakers, and a project close to my heart because it's in our backyard here in Victoria, is from Corey Walker. Corey's with the Burnanga Indigenous Fishing Club. Corey's going to have a discussion and share a story around caring for country, culture through recreation fishing. If we can welcome Corey.
Good morning. My name's Corey Walker. I'm a Yorta man from the north east of Victoria, particularly the iconic River Red Gum, or Biella in our language. We call the Red Gum. I suppose Burnanga is Yorta for cod or Murray cod. It's an iconic river fish that we harvest, particularly in our waterways up on country. So we've got a strong affiliation with the old Burnanga, which we call it in our language. So the club, we set the club up before COVID hit, particularly around getting our mob back to country, which is really critical within our young people, and also our elders supporting our young people to pass on the traditional knowledge systems, and also getting them out of the house and back to country to participate in recreational fishing, and also cultural practice, which is very critical within passing on traditional knowledge for our young people. That photo was taken, that was in one of the lakes. You know, we love going having a fish, us mob, and I'd just like to acknowledge the Wirramarri as the traditional owners of country and the elders past, present and emerging also, and also acknowledge my family and the countrymen here today, and also acknowledge non-Indigenous people as well. Where's this gadget here? All right, as I said before, I'm the president, founded the club. I went to uni and I said, you know, was around a campfire out on country with my family, and they brought up, wouldn't it be a great way to set up a rain fishing club? And I said, okay, well let's do it. So that process and those conversations around the fire, the yarning circle, happened out on country, and it inspired me to set up the club, and with the support of my family as well. This is country here. It's on Yorta country. As you can see, you've got the Dungala, which we call the Murray River. Dungala means big water. Obviously, it's the biggest freshwater river system in mainland Australia, and it's home to various native fish species, particularly the Burnanga Murray cod. So that's our tribal estate. We've got many, it's all on floodplain country, and you know, we're very fortunate that we do have a lot of rivers and anna branches that we can participate in recreational fishing. Oh, that's my cousin there, having a bit of a fish there on the banks of the Dungala. So what a way to go and have a good time down on the Murray River or the Dungala. What is Burnanga Indigenous Fishing Club? Well, particularly around, it's about health and wellbeing. It's also about partnering up and collaborating with government agencies, institutions like the Arthur Riley Institute, Catchment Management Authority. So it's a platform really to get community, particularly our members and non-Indigenous people as well, to get out on country and participate in activities within the fishing club. So this photo here was, we went out on country with the Arthur Riley Institute, and we've done some electro-fishing and monitoring the large body fish. So that's really critical within monitoring our waterways, particularly around, we've had fish kills, particularly around the floods impacting country, on Yorta country, the dissolved oxygen levels, black water events. So with myself and my daughter works for Yorta Nations, and also my cousin, he's a manager within the Yorta Nations, and he sees firsthand the impacts of dissolved oxygen pollution events also. And I also work for the Environmental Protection Authority. So as a family, we are very invested in caring for country and healing country to restore country. This is the logo. I would just like to pay homage to Tom Day. He's a well-known artist on Yorta country, and he's a Gundi Jamara man as well. We collaborated together and we come up with a design, traditional art. It's X-ray lineal art, so it's a traditional south-eastern art style of work, particularly in Yorta country as well. So it's a great logo, and what a way to go to set up a logo and to represent the iconic Burnanga. Here's my two nephews, cultural dance, practice, particularly elders passing on traditional knowledge, and it's all about using fishing as a platform to get mob to country. We do have cultural events, particularly with an ad hoc week events, but also passing on knowledge out on country, which is really critical within passing on knowledge through our ancestors, and also myself and other family members as well. They're all 18 now, 19. So they've been embedded within the culture and fishing, through fishing as well. This is my mum. We took her out on country. She was craving for a feed of borpa. We call borpa in our language. Freshwater crayfish. They've been really impacted by black water events, as the Wirramarri and the Barkindji, the dissolved oxygen. They crawl out of the water because there's a lack of oxygen within the waterways, and that photo was taken on the Gilby River. But we, as traditional owners, we do understand. We like to work in with scientific institutions, land managers such as Parks, DELP, or the new DECA, Department of Energy, Environment and Water, Climate Change Action, something like that anyway. But that was taken, and we bring her out on country with the family, a few of the elders, and she was passing on traditional knowledge as well about, caring for country and how important to pass on knowledge, particularly within Yorta culture and other First Nations groups. That photo was taken on the Kaila, which is the Goulburn River. It goes into the Murray River or the Dungala, and that's based in Shepparton, Victoria. That photo was taken just out of Shepparton, Victoria, 2 hours away. We do provide a culturally safe environment. Like I said before, we do cultural resource management, particularly with two-way knowledge sharing systems. It's pretty critical within land management, particularly traditional knowledge and scientific-based knowledge as well, collaborating together and working together to heal and restore country, which is really important within the impacts of climate change and other impacts due to pollutions, particularly due to farmland runoff and discharge from industry as well. So it's really critical to work together in partnership. This photo here was taken out on country on the Dungala. Took my nephew out, he hasn't been out on country for a while, and we're doing a traditional way of practicing bidja, making fire. We call bidja fire in our language. And he, his eyes lit up when he was implementing traditional methodologies back on country. And that was a cultural day, a few days camping out on country. But some of the challenges, I suppose, we do face is getting the kids interested in land management and cultural practice. I think it's really hard when you've got new technologies coming into the household, and they put their heads in the screens and they're not interested. So through the club, this is a platform to get our communities back to country, back to nature, to care for the environment, and also making sure that they do have their knowledge passed on, particularly First Nation knowledge and other traditional owner groups throughout country. This photo here was taken at the Fisheries. My daughter works for the Fisheries, Victorian Fishing Authority. We've got a great partnership with the Fisheries. And these kids are from the Save the Children organisation, and we took them out, ran a program through the club about the importance of caring for native fish species, and also particularly around the impacts of invasive species like carp and other invasive non-natives out there as well. Little nephew there, he's a bit of a fishing gun. He outfishes his father. Just put it out there. But he loves fishing. He's growing up out in the country, and when we say we're going out fishing, like, he plays up to come out. So it's really good to see. Like I said before, a couple of photos there. We CMA photo on the left. Went out on country, and this is a highly cultural lagoon, significant lagoon. It's got fibres of their women weaves those rust sedge for basket weaving, and also we had my totem's a long-necked turtle, the bayadera, and we're protecting those and monitoring those species, and it's a really healthy system. And we translocated pygmy perch back in that landscape, which is really important for bringing back and restoring country. The other photo was the Burnanga when we was out on Barmer National Park. Done electro-fishing, and that was a big Burnanga there, and we put him back in the river system, but it's that data analysis which is really important to preservation of our species, particularly during the floods we have now. We've got a big explosion of invasive pests like carp that has really, overwhelmed our waterways at the moment, because we had the perfect storm with the right climate change, flood, and other impacts. So we've got a big job at hands to reduce the numbers again. We thought we got on top of them, but the old carps returned in massive numbers. Like I said, I like to highlight the CMAs, the Fisheries, the Arthur Riley Institute, and it's all about collaboration and working together. And I think we need government resources as well, but we also need traditional owners to work side by side with each other to make sure that we do have strong partnerships and agreements, particularly working out in the field, and also making sure that the elders got a voice at the table as well. We do have other partnerships with GV Water. This is the township of Merrigan. If you Google it, it's just out of Shepparton, Victoria, and it was an old asset they had sitting there dormant for 20 years. So what we did, we've done a project around Dunyak Mora, means fishing lake in Yorta Yorta language, and we partnered up with bushfire recovery, got the root bulbs, put structure in there, fishing platforms, and we had a lot of donations from businesses all come together, and we turned a 50 meg and a 10 meg disused ponds into a fishing lake. So it's full of water now, and we released, translocated some Burnanga, Murray cod and some yellow belly from Greens Lake, which was decommissioned because GV Water decommissioned that site, so we put some fish in there as well, and that'll be launched in October for the community. This is Uncle Col Walker. I get a lot of inspiration from Uncle Colin. He's a family member. He's a senior Yorta Yorta elder, and he's getting on an age now. But there's a quote from him goes, "Our forests are our universities." So we don't have to go to a classroom to learn. We need to get kids out on country to learn the old way and also the scientific way of caring for country. So he's been heavily involved within the support of the hatchery just out of Arcadia, and also he's been heavily involved with cultural heritage, protection of cultural heritage as well, passing on knowledge to our younger people. So I'd just like to acknowledge Uncle Cole for his generosity in passing on that knowledge to our younger people. And that's my son and my little grandson, Tiawi. 2 minutes, brother. In summary, I suppose, we've got various projects, a lot of things happening out in the field, but, we want to simplify things and just make it basic for kids, just to go out and chuck a line in, have a bit of a fish out on country, then that might spark interest for land management, careers, or other options within the fisheries. And the most important thing is to heal and restore country, particularly with the impacts of climate change, flood events, black water events, you name it. It's a lot going on, but in collaboration and work together, we can heal and get country the way it should be, is healthy. The old motto is healthy country, healthy people. So, yeah, we need to collaborate and work together as a community. And thank you.
I just want to thank you, Corey. Thank you. It is a project close to my heart and close to our heart here in VFA, working with Burnanga, and I just want to acknowledge the other Burnanga staff and participants that are in the room here today. Thank you, and thank you for being part of this conference. Uncle Cole, he's our ambassador for Murray Cod. He's come on board with us from the get-go when we announced the first Murray Cod conference in Victoria, and Uncle Cole Walker's been walking side by side with us from day dot, even through the creation and the development of Arcadia Native Fish Hatchery at Shepparton. So thank you, Corey. I'd like to welcome our next speaker up, Sarah Curtis Wilson. Sarah's going to have a conversation with us and share a story around critical reviews of no-take marine protected areas and implications for traditional fishing practice. So I'd like to welcome me up.
Atamaria, good morning. My name's Sydney and I'm here from New Zealand. I work for the New Zealand Sport Fishing Council in Fisheries Management, and I also work for Legacy, which is a non-profit aimed at restoring abundance to coastal fisheries in New Zealand. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that we're standing on today, and thank the World Recreational Fishing Conference for inviting me, and also the New Zealand Marine Research Foundation, which has funded some of our trip. So I'll be discussing no-take marine protected areas as used as fisheries management tools specifically, and their implications generally around cultural values and kind of what we're doing in New Zealand for fisheries management. So for many, our connection to the ocean is out of a necessity, pleasure, or a newfound love. But for others, it's generations of knowledge that began when they set out and followed the stars to find a new home. In New Zealand, Māori have a wide range of values that underpin their respect and understanding of ecosystems. These include, but are not exclusive to, whakapapa, which is the connection or genealogy between humans and all aspects of the environment. Kaitiakitanga, which is an active guardianship of the marine environment, Taonga Tuku Iho, and Te Aotearoa, which articulate the passing down of the natural and treasured resources in a state that is the same or better than what it was in the previous generation. Seafood or kaimoana are one of these treasured resources. Particularly for coastal hapu or sub-tribes, kaimoana is fundamental when Māori come together for meetings, funerals, and celebrations. I've been able to work on a project called the Kaika Project, and we've really seen the significance through this project as they redistribute undervalued fish heads and frames to communities throughout Auckland, where I'm based. And yeah, we've really seen the significance on how important it is to those communities. The continued decline of global fisheries has disclosed the systemic failures of world-class fisheries management plans. Single species management and management tools such as maximum sustainable yield have contributed to the sustainable depletion of global fish stocks, and continuation of this coupled with destructive fishing methods and a growing population, as we saw in some of the presentations this morning, are driving the development of global conservation targets such as 30 by 30. 30 by 30 has steered the rise in no-take in MPAs in general, so marine protected areas, promoting the use of no-take specifically as a silver bullet strategy to rebuild fish stocks from the edge of collapse. Over the past 20 years, there's been a dramatic increase in MPA establishments with varying objectives. 2.7% is classified as a no-take, which is generally no extraction at all, and you can usually dive, snorkel, or like kayak in these areas. So no-take MPAs are said to increase biomass of fish stocks by controlling fishing effort, reducing impacts to size, age structure and genetic diversity, reducing bycatch, increasing the biomass of fish in adjacent areas via a spillover effect, and protecting significant highly diverse habitats. But many no-take MPAs don't meet all of these objectives, and a lot of MPAs are money spent only to prevent fishing from occurring without addressing the real core issues. The design and placement of an MPA is a crucial consideration, otherwise it is just protection for the sake of protection. It needs to be large enough to self-recruit or be connected with other MPAs via networks to account for dispersal of larvae, have representation of biodiversity and habitats, and have an ongoing management process in place to regulate illegal fishing which can impede conservation objectives. So no-take MPAs have been advertised as effective fisheries management tools, but it is important that we recognise limiting factors that prevent what would be labelled as success, inevitably resulting in what's called paper parks or fortress conservation that exclude people and provide no added fisheries benefits. Some limitations can include a lack of resources, which unfortunately a lot of us have faced in conservation and management. Displacement of fishing effort when there is a lack of output controls integrated alongside area closures and the equivalent fishing pressure is displaced to surrounding areas, affecting neighbouring ecosystems. Additionally, no-take MPAs are stationary, and if we consider climate change and sea temperatures rising, the spatial distribution of species is changing, and what we are trying to protect may not be afforded any protection in the future. So we're really in need of finding more sustainable management alternatives which will allow us and future generations to continue enjoying our fisheries. I could talk about this example for ages, so if anyone would like to talk about it later on, I would be happy to go over it. But in a past research, I've used the Chagos MPA, which is located in the centre of the Indian Ocean, as an example of how no-take affects Indigenous groups dependent on subsistence fishing. The 640,000 kilometre square no-take MPA was established in 2010. It was to mitigate overfishing which was caused by subsistence fishing by the Indigenous peoples, the Chagosians, despite their exile 30 years prior. The MPA encapsulates all of the Chagos Islands, but excludes the green area in the middle where military fishing still continues. The MPA has been praised as an ecological success. However, its designation has drastic implications for the Chagosians, as it now means that their resettlement, if successful, will be heavily impacted by the removal of their ability to access a vital resource. I won't be able to cover everything in the time that I've had, but this table just compares fisheries data from select fisheries that was collected before and after the MPA was established. The MPA was, and how it just shows how the MPA has maybe contributed to the fisheries in the area. As a result of a limited budget of an MPA this size, there has been limited research that would indicate any trends in fish biomass. Considering the social and cultural impacts that the no-take is having on the Chagosians, there is great uncertainty around whether there are enough benefits that outweigh these impacts that have occurred. Despite it being quite an extreme example of what can occur over a large scale, it's a clear example of what can go wrong and how important it is to consider ecosystem-based management, which includes people as a part of the ecosystem. On a global scale, the loss of access to fisheries as a result of no-take MPAs displaces dependent fishing communities and Indigenous groups, which leads to competition for resources and can increase fishing pressure in adjacent areas. From a cultural perspective, many coastal Indigenous groups have been fishing in the same region for generations, and this inability to utilise a revered resource and access key marine environments can be detrimental to the transfer of traditional ecological knowledge, and the connection to an area which has grown over generations can be lost. In response to a failing quota management system, Māori and local communities throughout New Zealand are witnessing the depletion of our fish stocks, and they've come together to advocate for the government to start putting the long-term sustainability of our fisheries first. We've begun learning how to navigate the space between losing our fisheries to collapse and losing the areas to permanent no-take closures. Ahu Moana is an approach that is Indigenous-led and sees recreational fishers, community groups and other stakeholders join together and use their combined strengths to protect and restore the marine ecosystem in a way that benefits everyone and future generations. Although it is all happening quite organically, communities are supporting each other, and alongside groups including the New Zealand Sport Fishing Council and its 53 affiliated clubs, they've gained traction and are bringing to light an inclusive way to manage our fisheries. A good example of how Ahu Moana is currently working is the ongoing collaboration between 3 hapu or sub-tribes and fishing representatives who have partnered with the Napier Port to establish new artificial reefs. Ongoing monitoring, enhancement and future protection of these reefs have been supported by hapu, the Napier Port Fisheries Liaison, which has commercial and recreational fishing representatives, and Legacy Hawke's Bay, who are a group of volunteer fishers supported by Legacy and the New Zealand Sport Fishing Council to address fisheries issues in the region. Māori-led management tools are also being utilised to rebuild fish stocks. In December 2020, it was recognised that scallops were being heavily depleted in this area around here by dredging. So in order to protect the scallop beds, the local iwi or tribe laid a rahui, which is acknowledged as a temporary voluntary closure of an area or a no-take guideline for a specific species. Although rahui are not formally legislated, community groups and fishing clubs supported and advocated for the closure. In this example, the scallop rahui, which is outlined in orange, was laid first, and in early 2022, the area in yellow was placed under a rahui by a neighbouring iwi, following the effects of the displaced commercial vessels that had moved from the orange area back up to the yellow. So you can think of rahui like an intervention in the face of the government inaction when iwi recognise that there is an environmental issue such as the decline in a fish population. Since the scallop rahui, there has been an increase in iwi collaboration with local communities and fishing clubs to raise awareness around customary practice and environmental issues. Following the establishment of the scallop rahui, in anticipation of the area reopening once the population rebuilds, we have been advocating for new fisheries management legislation, which will include the removal of scallop dredging and recommend alternative harvest methods. As an island nation, most New Zealanders have deep-rooted connections with the marine environment. And as an alternative to no-take MPAs, we can slowly adapt out of common systemic fisheries management issues, including social and environmental displacement, by collaborating towards more holistic solutions with all affected groups. Although there is still a long way to go, we're now witnessing how people can enjoy fisheries whilst ensuring its long-term stability for future generations. And this is my thank you.
Thank you, Sydney. That was great. Wow, what a journey we're on. You know, from the tropics of Torres Strait, a snapshot of the Murray-Darling Basin and our Barkindji family and our Yorta family, Now we've just come back from the ditch, New Zealand, and what they're doing over there. Thank you, Sydney. What a great work. But it's not over yet. Let's go north. Let's go to the Northern Hemisphere and welcome our next speaker, Tim Troll. Tim's going to have a talk on the Bristol Bay Fly Fishing and Guide Academy, creating opportunities for the Indigenous youth of Southwest Alaska. So we're going up into your neck of the woods, brother.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I hate to disappoint, but I'm not Tim Troll. Tim Troll was unable to make it, so they found another Tim to fill in for him. I'm Tim Sartwell. I work for NOAA Fisheries, but we are a sponsor of this program, and I've participated in it, and Tim sent me a bunch of notes to share with you all. So let's go ahead and dive in. So Tim Troll is actually the executive director of the Bristol Bay Heritage Land Trust and the founder of this program. A quick note about the Bristol Bay region. It is a large region in Southwest Alaska, about the size of the state of Washington in our Pacific Northwest. There's about 8,000 people year-round in the area, and they're scattered into 28 small villages and 2 small towns. There's no highways connecting the region. Travel is to and from by air, often through floating planes. And it also is home to the largest wild salmon runs in the world. Last year in 2022, they had their record 70 million sockeye salmon returned to this area. Nope. No, not yet. Let me try this one. Okay, so I'm here to speak about the Bristol Bay Fly Fishing and Guide Academy, obviously. Come on. Really struggling. Okay, so the first academy was in 2008, and it was founded by these 3 folks in the front. Nancy Morris Lyon is a lodge owner in the Bristol Bay region. Luki Alikok is a tribal chief up in the Bristol Bay region. And then that's Tim Troll there on the right. He's the Land Trust CEO of the Bristol Bay Land Trust. So why the academy? The opportunity already exists in the Bristol Bay region. There's 13,000 anglers per year visit the remote region. It's home to 75 lodges and guiding operations in the region. The goal is to keep more money in the region, supporting local businesses and families. Guides from outside would fly in for the summer fishing season and then leave at the end of the season without keeping the money in the local economy. Guiding matches the local rural Alaska lifestyle, where rod and reel fishing may not be the traditional way they harvest fish. They are very attuned to the nature of the ecology out there. Kids are driving boats from an early age. They can share their cultural knowledge and provide a more complete client experience for people who come to the area to fish. There's cost savings to lodges. They don't have to fly in guides from around the country if they can create and build up local fishing guides in the area. There's long-term investment in sustainable local jobs tied to healthy fish habitat, and there's developing the local conservation leadership, because the native tribal corporations who now own the important fish habitat, they are essential for maintaining the healthy recreational fishery. So it's bringing these young Native Alaskans into this industry and allowing them to be advocates for it. They target 15 to 24-year-olds, and they have to be a resident of the Bristol Bay region or a Bristol Bay Native Corporation shareholder. That is a very complex system, so if you have questions about that, I'm happy to share Tim Troll's contact information with you. But this is the age group that they find. These are the people that they want to bring in and help support through their program. the key concepts, what has led to success for the Bristol Bay Academy? There's no cost to selected participants. Everything, including air travel to and from the academy and all their time at the week-long course, is included free of charge to participants. There's volunteer instructors. A lot of their instructors are local fish and wildlife biologists, retired anglers, local guides who see the value in this program and want to participate. So all of the instructors who help these kids throughout the week are volunteer. It's a small group. They target 18 to 15 participants, as I mentioned, so it's a very low student to teacher ratio that allows really good connections and the ability to work directly with students one-on-one as they're struggling to adapt to new skills. It's a full 1 week immersive program. They come in, they stay at a lodge for the entire week, and they get their training and then depart at the end of that week. They leave with free rod, reel, and fly tying tools. They are able to provide those students with the tools to continue in their fly fishing adventure and hopefully lay the foundation for additional fly fishing skills to build upon. It is held at a volunteer host lodge. As I mentioned, there's a lot of lodges in the area, and the hosts see the lodge owners see the value in this program and often host them at no charge to the program or minimal charge. They do raise money to help cover any additional costs that may be needed. They do fly out fishing days where they will fly students out to remote rivers and take them fishing, learning along the way. The Academy does circulate around the region on a 3-year cycle. It gives participants an opportunity close to home, so they're in their regions, in their areas that they know and are aware of. And it also reduces the burden on the lodge community by not having one lodge host every year. A big part of this is the client day. Local community members are invited to be pretend clients for the participants. So on the last day of the academy, local leaders, and I got to be one of these pretend clients out there last year. And it's a great honor to be with them as they really take everything they learned that week and put it to use. There's also a lot of community engagement. The graduation dinner with family and local community leaders is a great way to end the entire academy and help provide more connections moving into the future. And in addition, students in college also get a University of Alaska college credit for completing the course. So I'll go through, Tim has provided me a ton of awesome pictures in here, so I'll go through some of the core program elements. Obviously, this may be the first time that a lot of these students have picked up a fly rod, so you are going over the basics of rigging and equipment care. Again, it takes time to learn fly fishing. It can be intimidating at times, so it's a real focus on trying to get these kids comfortable with not just the equipment, but also casting. There is a lot of time spent casting. The program is pretty structured and unstructured. They may have mornings in classrooms and workshops and things like that, but then they're provided a lot of free time to go out and practice their casting with the instructors, to be able to get out on the water every afternoon and practice their fly fishing on the river. So a big part of it is being on the water and fishing. And a lot comes with that, right? You get boat safety, you get fly out safety around float planes. It's letting them get the full experience of what it means to fly fish in these rivers. They're also taught how to tie flies. It's amazing watching these kids come in on day one, never having tied a fly, and some of the amazing things that they are doing by the end of the week. So they set up this big tie flying table, they provide all the materials, they walk them through how to tie certain things, and as soon as they ace that first basic pattern, they just keep growing and growing and growing, and it's impressive to watch them learn and expand their skills throughout the week. And then just some basic, knot tying not just lines, but boat dock lines and things like that, making sure that there's safety on the water throughout the week. And again, boat safety. You know, small boats running around these rivers. We were on the Neck River last year. There were some areas that were very shallow. There were other areas that were very deep. And the guides that are helping to run this academy are trying to impart the knowledge of how to read the river, how to keep your clients safe, and how to handle dangerous situations. Again, as I mentioned, they do fly-out fishing. So they'll take them and they'll fly to a different part of the river, learning the safety around float planes, understanding the needs of their clients and the community as you're taking off in these float planes. Wilderness first aid, a big part of what these are remote areas. As I mentioned, there's no ambulance that can drive down the street to come pick you if there's an accident. You need to know the basics first aids when you're in these remote areas to keep your clients safe. Human impact on river ecology. This is an interesting exercise where they give each student a piece of a river. And they say, you know, here's your piece of the river. Develop what you want on it to ensure that you're, you know, happy, healthy for you and your community. And then they come back together and they piece the river together and do a big puzzle. And they look at what people have done upstream versus what people need downstream and how that all relates to the impact on not just the river, but what could be the ecology of the river as well. Other cool stuff, they were plastering bear prints out on the river. We saw quite a few bears and moose last year walking around as we were out there fishing. There's also, they bring in other local people to talk about birds. Tim does a lot about the local history of the Bristol Bay area. There's local fisheries management that comes in and talks about how those salmon fisheries are managed, and local land management with Alaska and federal agencies as well. It's an important cultural sharing. These villages are isolated. The ability for the various villages and tribes to get together and share their cultures is a big part of this program. As I mentioned, the Client Day, it's a huge form of success. You know, the launch of their guiding career potentially, to take out a client, to show them part of the river, to help them catch their first or, you know, pretend first fish on fly. So it's just a super way to build the confidence of these students as they leave the academy. There are still challenges that are being worked to overcome. There is reluctance among some lodges to hire the Indigenous guides. Many locals still want to commercial fish from mid-June to mid-July. When you have 70 million sockeye salmon returning, there's a very big commercial aspect to that fisheries, and they need that time to support their families as well. So a lot of lodges are making exception for that commercial fishing season. The recreational season's about mid-June to mid-October, so you know, you lose your local guide that first week, or excuse me, the first month of the fishing season. Working at the lodge is demanding. You're out on the water every day fishing with new people, and sometimes it doesn't quite match the laid-back pace of life in other areas of the Bristol Bay region. And then there's also the unwillingness of some of the locals to acquire some of the additional certifications and licenses needed to carry passengers on a boat. It's just one of the essentials that, 2 minutes, okay. The changes and success that the Academy has seen in the region is there has become less tension between the local Indigenous communities and the lodges. The Bristol Bay Native Corporation now has even purchased 2 lodges in the area and is employing graduates of the Academy. And approximately 20 participants out of the program, forgot to click through. Approximately 20 participants out of the program have worked in a lodge guiding for at least 1 season, another 10 for 2 or more seasons, and approximately 5 of the total 158 participants have gone through the academy and are now know the base, and 2 are now, I have totally messed that up. There are 10 who have now worked full-time all summer long in the Bristol Bay region. So all 158 have gone through the academy and now know the basics of fly fishing and the value of the recreational fishing community in the Bristol Bay region. And again, there is a ton of partners that help support this program. You see Trout Unlimited up there. They really help run and orchestrate the whole thing. NOAA Fisheries provides, who I work for, provides funding and participates in it as well. But it is an immense group of participants and partnerships that make this program a success. And with that, I am done.
Thank you, Tim. It is going on to lunch, so we may not have time to bring our guests up for questions, but look, if we can catch up with them over lunch in the foyer during the poster session, that would be great. If there's any pressing question, we can bring one back. If you have a burning question for one of our presenters. Cool. Thank you.